much, Ümit. The last speaker of our panel graduated from the Architectural Department of Istanbul University, Talat Ulusoy. Between 76-80, he was the board member of the Chamber of Architects. Was found as a political refugee in the Netherlands after 1980s. The title of the presentation is The Truth of the Untrue City. So I will be the one who talks about the lie. I am lucky, maybe unlucky. I will be talking after Ümit Kurt. I am lucky because he laid a very strong foundation for me. I am unlucky because he already talked about what I will be speaking on. Yes, Izmir was like that at once. Before October 1922, or before the fire, let me say, we had the Izmir in the first picture, and now we have the other one. In my presentation, I will be talking over the newspapers of Izmir at that time. I'm not going into the details of those newspapers in order to gain time, because there were some other presenters who mentioned those newspapers. There are two more newspapers that I'd like to talk about. One is İli Türk Sesi. So these were also prominent newspapers, and we will meet the founder of that newspaper in a couple of minutes. This plunder issue, I think there is this close connection with that plunder and the fatwa of the religious men. For plunder, you need to have this jihad comment. Börekçizade's fatwa is clearly giving this. It clearly says that people from Izmir and surroundings are defined as enemies because they collaborated with the enemy. In order to help you, I included the English versions here. I hope you have enough time to read those. I will be skipping. Now, Börekçizade Rıfat's fatwa, those who were defined as enemies, the properties of those people are halal to Muslims. For those who are fighting for jihad, the properties of those people are halal. This is correct for the Islamic law. If people are going towards Izmir, this is in line with their religious belief. This enthusiasm and this actually the fatwa itself has this aim of giving this enthusiasm to people. But Ümit Kurt mentioned this. In order not to waste those properties, there is this haste here. Ministry of Finance very clearly, as Ümit mentioned, accepts the existence of plunder. I will skip those to gain time. There is an example of official plunder, one of the newspapers from Izmir. I did not include the date. Here I have October the 2nd, 1922, Ahenk newspaper. Military officers are not allowed to occupy any house themselves. This is a shame. Occupation will be only allowed by applying to the commandery. This is the state way of behaving, and following application to the places only the Immigrant Settlement Commission approves. So what did they leave behind in terms of immovable properties? and movable properties. İzmir Directorate of Statistics give some figures, but Akşam newspaper in 1924, 12,000 278 houses, 2,831 stores, and 89 factories. You can increase that number, including some smaller scale workshops. These 89 factories are not small-scale factories. They are really large-scale factories. If you go to Lesvos, for instance, for one of those physicolis manufacturers, Mandalados region, it's now a museum and ceramics workshop. You will see those buildings there. There are two very large olive oil presses. And there are steam engines, flour factories as well. Those 25 factories were not functioning up till 1934 because there is no bourgeoisie, no proletariat, no labor group, so no working class to work in those factories. I have an anecdote related to those flour factory. If I have time remaining, I will tell.
And when we look at the back side of the newspapers, in 1922, September, it's starting from the last week of September in 1922, I looked until 1933. So when we look at these fourth pages, these fourth pages are allocated to the announcements for the sale or rent of abandoned property. For instance, the first interesting announcement is the following. So you can read it on the screen, and while you are reading, I'm going to summarize. So if you have checks or notes in your hands, you can bring these checks and notes, and it should be certified by the Chief Inspectorate of the abandoned property. If it is not certified by this inspectorate, then these valuable papers will be void, and this means that the notes in the hands of the Christian merchants, and so this was a very practical way to invalidate the valuable papers held by Christian merchants. So when you combine this with the receipts of the Muslims, you can see that the Ottoman state had a structure which didn't leave any gaps and loops. And here, let me summarize this again. There are many advertisements and announcements. So there are some meaningful examples. You can read it on the screen. And when we look at these announcements, we see that they talk about salted fish and cheese. So through the revenue department of the province, and you can see that Manchuria and Exnupola and Kotiadi, Karagözoğlu, etc. You see that cheese and salted fish from these companies, these were sold. Large empty bags and also weights and acorns were sold. So in the first wave they were selling everything from cheese to acorn, but they were also selling printing houses. And also this is the Anatolian newspaper published by Haydar Rüştü, and just after 1908 he was sent to İzmir. He was working for the Union and Progress Party. He's a journalist. He was a journalist, and before 15th of May, and he escaped from İzmir and went to Antalya, and he had good relations with the invading Italians, and he continued to work as a journalist in Antalya, and then he came back and he establishes his printing house once more, because you see that many printing machines were being sold at that time. and printing machines of Christians were sold because Christians left all their property and they ran away. So can you hear me well? I don't know. There's something. Is there something wrong with the sound? Yeah. Okay. So while you are reading the screen, let me tell you something else. In the Brekçizade Fatwa, it refers to non-Muslims. It generalizes them. However, on the 9th of October, in the Ahenk newspaper, an article was published. And here it says the following. Foreigners who left Izmir are coming back. And you know Levantines that Izmir people like? And so it talks about their return as good news. And people who left their property and escaped, these included Greeks, Greek Orthodox and Armenians. And so there's another lie here. Yeah, it is a story of we are tolerant against foreigners, and he's not talking about the Greeks and Armenians here when he's talking about foreigners. And they also say, so there was also an anti-imperialist war. It said that Italian, French foreigners, Levantines, oh, they are coming back. So this is good news. You see, there's something else there should be something else here. And an automobile was being sold in 1938. So it is not sold by the military, although it is in the yard of a military building. So it was used, and the abandoned property administration is selling this. And so there was this cavalry troop near Halkalı, Hilalpınar, and they were selling horses there. And that cavalry troop was there until the beginning of 1870s. So people who are young like me will probably remember. No, is there a mistake? No, until 1970. Yes. So at a very early stage in Beyler Street in Izmir, every Friday in a large hall, an auction was carried out. This was an auction for the movable property, and as you can see from the news from 1928, this venue was renewed and expanded so that the auctions would continue. So I couldn't continue because I was looking at the newspaper of each every week, and in this auction, for instance, they were selling piano and large beds and furniture items and carpets from Kayseri, Uşak, Kula, Gördes. And every week they were selling these items every week, and children cards, undergarments, and probably all of these items were coming from the warehouse of the Hilali Ahmer, and there were these mobile items were found even in front of the houses. So maybe this was the case. So Armenians and Greeks who left Izmir, who escaped Izmir, so they took out their pianos and silky undergarments in baskets, and they placed them in front of their houses, and then they burned down fire. Do you think that this is possible? Don't you think that this is a lie? Don't you think that there's a lie underlying this? Could it be possible for the Armenians to take their pianos out of their house and then burn it down? So where is the truth? And so sharing the booty once more, and sharing the plundered items. So there was corruption. So all these announcements and advertisements filled the fourth pages every day, and corruption announcements were in the second pages and in the city news. For instance, Niyazi Bey, the manager of the abandoned property administration, was tried for corruption. And here you see, in Basmani, there is a pit of shame. You can see the picture of pit of shame in Basmani. And now they are building a high-rise building there of 74 floors. And this is the location of the Armenian hospital, Losovoric hospital. There was an Armenian hospital here. And after they have evacuated the building, they have burned down the building. But in 32, the owner, Nazmi Bey, a journalist, filed a petition with the municipal council, and he wanted to operate this place as a bus terminal, and then after 10 years he would transfer this to the municipality. So we have this petition, and then this petition was accepted, and this racist nationalist newspaper owners, they made requests, and these requests were accepted. And you know that the old bus terminal was this one, which was constructed by Nazmi Sadık Bey, who was the owner of a racist nationalist newspaper. And you know this, on the 10th of October, so we take our children to this museum of Atatürk, the pretty museum. So it is almost intact, and there may have been some furniture, but this was the mansion of Ispartalian. So Museum of Atatürk belonged to Ispartalian, Agop and Takfor. So they had this mansion. So I wrote a long article, and it was published in the Social History Journal. And in between 1922 and 1926, a person, Niyazi Bey, used this building as he describes this venue as he operates this building as a hotel where balls took place, and he took over this from the abandoned property administration, and he gives this as a gift to Mustafa Kemal Pasha. After Mustafa Kemal Pasha died, this was left to his inheritor Makbule Hanım, but then the municipality purchased this from Makbule Hanım, and it was made a museum of Atatürk. So this is a very valuable museum because it was purchased 2 times. I don't think that you can find another example here. So yes, they purchased from Makbule Hanım, and then if they had given the title to the grandchild of Makbule Hanım, and I think this chain would just repeat itself. And the biggest lie is the following, and it is the abandoned property which is used everywhere. Yes, there is property, but it was not abandoned. There is no property which was abandoned. What we had there, as you see it in the picture, male between 18 and 45 years old, they were placed in the train, and they were sent to the central Anatolia, to slave camps. And women, elderly and children, until 30th of September, they were forced to leave Izmir. And this was a forced abandonment. So there was this. So it is very clear in the regulations that were promulgated back then. Martial law regulations explain this very clearly. So the time they couldn't find sufficient vessels, that it was first extended to the 8th of October, and then finally 9th of October a foreigner vessel came, and a Greek and Armenian vessel left for Lesbos. It left the bay. So this is the truth. It was not abandoned. People were forced to abandon. And yes, You know that they say that we have poured down Greeks to the sea. So this is a lie which is absorbed, internalized by the city. So here, no Greek soldiers were sent to the sea. Maybe a few from Urla. The Greek army already left Izmir on the 7th October. And I think if people were forced to go from here, probably they were children, women and elderly. They were forced to, they were drowned here. They were Armenians and Greek Orthodox. And I want to read something else in my last minutes, and I think I will have the record for finishing on time. So on the third page of the Aink newspaper, in the city news section, under it we see something. So there is a farewell announcement. Please allow me to read it. I will be very pleased. It is the pharmacist Lusonidas, an Ottoman subject Lusonidas gives is. So the fate wanted to separate me from my dear friends, and now I'm saying farewell to all of them with deep emotions and with pain in me. So wherever I go, I will always remember my dear friends, and I will feel the traces of the love they have shown me, and I will always appreciate the love they have shown. And a person who was forced to leave writes this, particularly Dr. Bahtiyar Hüseyin and his brother Major Necati and Emirzade Refik and Health Director Şükrü, Operator İsmet and Dr. Mustafa Enver. And Mustafa Enver had a statue, you know, he has a statue, and bacteriologist Memduh Bey, and all the Ottoman physicians of İzmir and pharmacist Süleyman Ferit, Mahmud Esad, and other pharmacists. I will never forget their friendship. And since my childhood, I lived together with the Muslims of İzmir, and I'm very upset and sad that I have to leave, and I say farewell to them, and I will always remain a true and loyal friend of Turks.